The arena was buzzing, jerseys were popping, and every Gilas fan I know had one hand on their heart and the other wrapped around a cold drink. You could feel the collective weight of a nation's hope in the air, thick and electric. This wasn't just another game on the calendar, this was Australia. A rivalry etched in physicality, controversy, and high stakes. We weren't just here to watch basketball. We were here to witness a battle, to pour every ounce of our passion from the stands onto the court, hoping it would be enough to fuel a legendary victory. We all pictured a classic dogfight that would end with a last-second dagger. In our minds, we could already see the highlights. Jordan Clarkson, a one-man press break, weaving through defenders for a tough finish at the rim. We envisioned Kai Soto, our titan in the paint, holding his own against Australia's notoriously rugged front line, swatting shots and commanding the boards. We were banking on those signature Gilas moments, the chaotic, fast-paced transition offense, the barrage of threes that can erase a deficit in a heartbeat, all fueled by that undeniable Filipino puso. We were strapped in for a 48-minute war, a game destined to be decided on the final possession, just waiting for our hero to rise. But the script we all wrote in our heads was torn to shreds almost from the opening tip. The roaring energy, that unshakable hope, it began to leak out of the building, possession by painful possession. It wasn't a sudden knockout punch, it was a slow, methodical dismantling that felt even worse. Instead, we walked out with that sick, hollow feeling. Australia didn't just win, they conducted a masterclass. They took Gilas's game plan, our beloved run-and-gun identity, and they didn't just counter it, they exposed it for the entire world to see. They turned our strengths into predictable patterns, our fast breaks into live ball turnovers, and our passion into visible, on-court frustration. They took our playbook, photocopied it, circled every single red flag in bright, glaring ink, and handed it back to us, a blueprint of our own demise. The final score wasn't just a number, it was a statement. So what exactly happened out there? This video isn't about dwelling on a tough loss. It's about understanding it because inside this defeat are crucial, if painful, lessons. We need to go beyond the box score and get granular with the tape. How did the Boomers' defensive scheme completely suffocate our perimeter game? What specific offensive sets did they run to relentlessly exploit our rotations? And where were the coaching adjustments that never seemed to come? Let's peel open exactly how they did it, piece by painful piece. The stage was set. This wasn't just another game in the tournament, this was a measuring stick. For Gilas Pilipinas, a team fueled by the hopes of a nation, facing the Australian Boomers was a test of progress, a chance to prove they could hang with the giants of the region. The pre-game buzz was electric, a mix of nervous energy and defiant optimism. There was a belief, a genuine feeling that this time could be different, that this squad had the talent and the grit to pull off something special. But basketball has a cruel way of ignoring the script. Sometimes the story you hope to write gets erased before the ink is even dry. First quarter, not even 2 full minutes in, and the scoreboard already looks like a typo, 29-12. You stare at it, waiting for a correction that never comes. It felt less like a basketball game and more like a glitch in the matrix. The optimism that filled the arena just moments ago, it evaporated, replaced by a stunned silence, punctuated only by the squeak of sneakers and the sound of the Boomers' net taking a beating. This wasn't just falling behind, this was a first-round knockout punch delivered in the opening seconds. How did it happen so fast? 7 threes, 7, in 2 minutes. That isn't hot shooting. That's a team-wide, unconscious heat check that simply never cools down. It was target practice. Every shot was in rhythm, feet set, with no defender within 10 feet. It was a systematic dismantling from behind the arc, a barrage so perfect and so relentless it felt preordained. You can survive a team getting hot, but you can't survive a team treating the three-point line like a layup line. This was a strategic failure unfolding in real time, and it all started with a defensive gamble that backfired in the most spectacular way imaginable. The game plan for Gilas was clear: park their bigs and drop coverage. The philosophy is sound in theory. You have your center, your rim protector, retreat into the paint to cut off drives to the basket. You essentially wall off the rim and dare the opposing guards to beat you with what is statistically the least efficient shot in basketball, the mid-range floater or pull-up jumper. You're telling them, we don't believe you can make this shot consistently enough to beat us. It's a conservative scheme designed to prevent easy buckets at the rim. Problem is, Australia's guards treat the mid-range like a suggestion, not a rule. They saw that cushion, that open space, and didn't even think about the floater. Their basketball calculus is different. Why take a contested 15-footer when you can take one step back for a wide-open 24-footer worth an extra point? They recognized the coverage instantly and adjusted, turning Gilas' strategy into their own personal shooting drill. The sequence became a recurring nightmare. One high screen at the top of the key. The Gilas big man honors the drop coverage, sinking back. The Australian guard uses a quick snake dribble, weaving back toward the middle to keep the on-ball defender stuck behind the play, and suddenly it's a foot race between their jet-quick guard and our rolling big. It's a mismatch baked into the scheme, a race the big man is destined to lose every single time. This creates chaos. The weak side defender sees the mismatch and has to make an impossible choice: leave his man open in the corner to stop the ball, or stay home and give up a layup. He slides over, a beat too late, just as the guard is already picking up his dribble. The pass is a laser to the now open shooter in the corner. Kick out, splash. The defense is in full scramble mode, but the Boomers' ball movement is too crisp, too precise. Rinse, repeat, grimace. It was a defensive scheme being surgically dissected, play after play, until all that was left was the deafening sound of the Australian onslaught. By the second quarter, the game had lost all sense of suspense. The initial roar of the home crowd had faded to a nervous murmur, because every Australian possession felt eerily familiar. It was like watching a rerun you'd already seen, and you knew exactly how it would end. The Boomers weren't just running plays, they were running a script. A script written with one purpose: to systematically dismantle Gilas Pilipinas by targeting its biggest strength, which was also its most exploitable weakness. The entire offensive scheme was built around one simple, brutal action: force a switch onto Junmar Fajardo. At 6'10", the Kraken is a titan in the paint, a multi-time PBA MVP for a reason. But on the perimeter, guarding smaller, quicker players, that's his kryptonite. Australia knew this. They'd initiate a high screen and roll, forcing Junmar to switch onto their guard, often the sharpshooting Chris Goulding. From there, the dance would begin. The guard would back up, creating an ocean of space, using hypnotic dribbles to lull Fajardo to sleep. The moment he overcommitted, it was over. A quick crossover, a hard plant, and a devastating step-back three. The results were staggering. In the first quarter alone, Australia shot a blistering 58.3% from beyond the arc. To put that in perspective, the best three-point shooting teams in the NBA hover around 40% on a good night. 58.3% is video game stuff, a heat check that never cools down. This wasn't just a couple of lucky shots falling. This was the direct outcome of a surgical game plan. This kind of shooting does more than just put points on the board, it psychologically breaks a defense. And that's where the other shoe dropped. While Gilas was desperately scrambling to contest the three-point barrage, the interior of our defense was left completely exposed. It was a classic catch-22. With Junmar pulled 25 feet from the basket, there was no rim protector. The paint became a free-for-all. The final box score tells a brutal story. Australia scored 38 points in the paint. But the most damning statistic was on the glass. They out-rebounded us 57-33. This led to an endless stream of second-chance buckets, with Australia scoring at double our rate. One single sequence encapsulated the entire nightmare. Goulding gets the switch on Fajardo, sizes him up, and launches another signature step-back three. The shot rims out. For a split second, there's a collective sigh of relief. A stop. But the relief was short-lived. As Gilas players watched the ball, Thonmaker came crashing in from the weak side, completely uncontested. He soared, snatched the offensive rebound, and in one fluid motion, slammed it back down. The Aussie bench erupted. Coach Chat Reyes immediately signaled for a timeout, and the crowd let out this universal groan of resignation, the sound of hope being extinguished, like someone just canceled Christmas. This wasn't random, this was a pattern, an exploitation loop that Australia ran on repeat. Coach Andre Lamanis and his staff had identified Gilas' single point of failure and built their entire strategy around hammering it relentlessly. It created a vicious cycle. The three-point threat pulled our big man out. With the big man out, the paint was vulnerable to drives and offensive rebounds. The defensive rotations to cover the paint then left shooters open on the perimeter. It was a tactical checkmate, a painful lesson in how a single, well-scouted weakness can unravel everything. We flicker of hope with 4 minutes left in the half. Single-digit deficit, arena on its feet, belief creeping back. Then the Boomers hit the turbo button, 11 unanswered. Every trip you saw the same micro mistakes. Late closeout, missed box out, miscommunication on the switch. Each error punished by a 3 or a bunny at the rim. Scoreboard 51-27. You could almost hear the air leave the arena. Second half, honestly it turned into a glorified scrimmage. Kevin Kiambao kept firing hero threes. 5 makes, 17 points total. And Dwight Ramos chipped in. But you can't patch a dam with duct tape when the whole thing's cracked open. Final buzzer, handshakes, long walk to the locker room. So what happened? It wasn't one blown assignment or one cold streak. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts, slow rotations, mismatches left on an island, 0 in-game tweaks. Drop your thoughts. What adjustment would you make first if you're Coach Tim? Tap like, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next rewind.